No, don't say anything.
Eddie, are you there?
Yeah.
I am being asked for PIN numbers for my YouTube connection. I tested it earlier, but it's not happy. Are you able? Have you got the power to live stream?
Give me 1 second.
Thanks, dude.
She shouldn't have been smart and be in the garden.
Kate?
Yes.
Can I ask you to, I think I need you to drop out before I can do that.
Okay, that's fine. I'll drop out. I'll come back in. You carry on. I've just let Councillor Barnett in.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Jane, Luca.
Yeah, here.
Can I also ask you to do the same thing as well?
Yeah, what, to log out and come back in, yeah?
Please.
Okay.
Colin's coming in, I think. I saw his name flash up.
I know it's all a bit tense, everyone.
Yeah, so's the excitement. Put the end time back now.
I'm putting that as able for kids to watch this, so no bad language.
Never. Perish the thought.
Adrian Page ain't with us, so we should be all right.
Peter, Tim, Charlotte, David, Charlotte, Carol, Morgan, Graham, Victoria. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, just can't miss it.
Right, Eddie, or do we need?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. It just takes a while.
Apparently Colin's trying to get in and he can't get in.
Yeah, he won't be able to at the moment.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah, I think we're going to do it by a Facebook Live by the look of it.
Not.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on now, are we? Blue. What's the difference?
Hi, Kate.
You told her to drop off.
Yeah, I know. I've just let her back in again. Hi, Kate.
Hi, how is it going?
I think I hit the same wall as you did.
Oh, damn.
If I drop out now, can you start the Facebook Live?
I can try, yeah. Sorry, everyone.
And can you let Colin in, please?
I will let Colin in and then go. Yeah, we would do when we get the Facebook Live going, if that makes sense.
How will the people on YouTube know that it's going to be on Facebook Live and not YouTube?
If you guys can hear me, I will be messaging one of my team to do some sort of message onto our YouTube channel to divert people to Facebook. It may be that there's a little bit of a gap, but just bear with me. Go live.
Doesn't Cliff have these problems on his meetings?
Wasn't me, really.
Councillor Wheeler's going for a walk again.
You're going for a cup of tea.
Back through the keyhole.
Please do not walk around with your iPad, Victoria.
No, it's because Colin was aware of the fact that I've been decorating, and he's just said what a transformation. So I am just quietly showing my kitchen, which is a true transformation.
It is like through the keyhole.
Just to say to everyone in the Zoom room, we're now live on Facebook. So
Right. Can we start now?
I would just wait for the go-ahead from Kate.
Yeah, I would say let's go. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so it's public, but it's okay. I think we've got the best that we can go. So let's go live, and I will get everybody busy sharing and posting social media my end.
Okay. Right. Welcome everybody, members, officers, and anybody that's found us to the Planning Applications Committee, 28th of May. Firstly, can I welcome back, who am I welcoming back here? I've lost him already. Robin, welcome back to the committee, Robin, after your year away dressed in your robes. There are no fire instructions, so apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I've received no apologies.
Thank you. Are you agreeable that I sign the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Thank you very much. Declarations we will deal with on each item, which takes us through to the first item on page 11, Princess Royal Barracks in Deepcut. Declarations here, I'll say that I have attended some of the many design review meetings. Are there any other declarations to make? Councillor Rise.
It's non-computer. I've met routinely with the developers, with Skanska. So obviously that's on the application as a whole for the entirety of Princess Royal Barracks. So I don't see any issues, and my mind is completely unmade up.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
I think, Chair, that it's probably will be the same as everybody else, that I've received communication from the developer into my inbox.
Thank you. Councillor Whitcroft.
I'm in the same position as Councillor Rice in that I have attended regular meetings in connection with the development.
You muted yourself in the middle of that. We're all right, then we've got to do it.
Apologies, I'm the same as Councillor Rice. I have attended regular meetings and had regular correspondence with the developer.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, and remain with an open mind.
Right, we've got that, yeah. Appreciate that. Thanks very much. That's it. And then Mrs. Fielder, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Excuse me. There is an update for members in respect of this item. Sorry. There's an update for members in respect of this item. Excuse me. There's also a further verbal update that I need to give members. The update papers propose a revision to condition 10, which is to do with affordable housing. And in that revision, I reference an email from the planning agent dated the 13th of November at 15:05 hours. That should read 15:03. What we have here is a reserved matters application. Now, members will be aware that my apologies. Members will be aware that there is a hybrid approval in place for PRB, for Princess Royal Barrack site, for 1,200 new homes to come forward. Now, this plan is actually from that hybrid approval, and what that does is it provides colour coding to different areas coming forward for built form. Now, what hopefully you will be able to see is we have an orange area, area 9, and we also have a sort of purple area, area 8 adjacent to it. Tonight, we're looking at area 9 and part of area 8. So that's the Alma and the Newfoundland Road character areas that we'll be looking at tonight. Just to help orientate ourselves, down at the bottom we have parcel 12, that's Brunswick Woods. That's being built out by Carla Homes at the moment for 215 units. Adjacent to that, you have area 1, which is the village green, and also the public house that was granted planning permission back at the beginning of this year is situated on that parcel. Above that, you have area 5, and the school is in that parcel as well, and that also has detailed planning permission. The northern access roundabout and the Spine Road coming through the site also have detailed planning permission. So I mentioned we're looking at areas 8 and 9, and what we're looking at is 127 new build properties on that land parcel as a whole. The development comprises detached dwelling houses, semi-detached, and a very short run, I think it's of 3 terrace properties as well. We have 5 flat blocks as well coming forward. The location of the flat blocks is deliberate. It mimics high density areas within the outline approval, but also it's the locations that the design panel, when they viewed the proposal twice, thought should be used for the flatted development to frame the development coming forward. The flat blocks themselves have been subject to detailed discussions, and our urban design consultant working for the council has led those to really push the applicant team to deliver a very high quality flatted development, and an awful lot of work has gone into achieving that. And certainly in the last 6-7 months, the applicant team have responded very positively to those very detailed discussions in bringing forward a contemporary, crisp, flatted design. And what we've particularly focused on is the corner flat block which is plot 61 to 69 at the corner of Cyprus Road with Newfoundland Road as a landmark building for the development. And the design discussions for the flatted element have centred on that building specifically, and then the other flat blocks have taken their cues from that and are complementary to it, but not identical. The existing road network will service most of the development. The Royal Way spur down in the southwestern portion of the site continues through and forms a new junction with Newfoundland Road. And you will have one of the flat blocks on that junction. That's plot 16 to 24. It's a smaller flat block, still contains 9 units, but they're all 1-bed units. The only other element of new road network is that will come round from Newfoundland Road to service the 4 detached properties facing the central Sands interface on the southern boundary of the site there. I have some photos. Photograph A, there is a key which hopefully you'll be able to see, but photograph A, I'm stood at the junction of Newfoundland Road looking north along Cyprus Road. So you've got the existing village centre and car park to the left, and then the road frontage, the other side to the right, is where the flat blocks will be situated. You'll have a 3-metre wide cycle pedestrian link, and then a landscape strip, and then the flat blocks set back behind that. Photograph B, I'm stood in exactly the same spot, but I'm looking westward along Newfoundland Road. You can see part of the car park there, and then built form in Dettingen Park. Photograph C, I've moved slightly eastward along Newfoundland Road. Now in this location you will have 2-storey dwelling houses coming forward on both sides of the highway there. Photograph D, I have traced my steps back along Newfoundland Road in a westerly direction, and again you can see part of the Dettingen Park development on the right hand side of that photo. Dettingen Park, as far as Newfoundland Road is concerned, turns its back on that road frontage, and what you have is an expanse of sort of fencing and boundary treatments. One of the design objectives for the Newfoundland Road character area is to positively address that frontage, get human activity back, and to get the buildings coming forward to actually have their entrances onto that road frontage. So that's something the design team have taken forward. In photograph E, I'm up at the northern extent of the site. I stood on Cyprus Road looking into Canada Road. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see some terrace fencing with some shrubs. You will have there the side elevation of flat blocks 91 to 99, and then behind that, some detached dwellings. To the left, that area of land forms part of the rear sort of interface, if you like, with properties on Malta Road. You will have 2-storey dwelling houses situated on that side of the road. In photograph F, I have walked into Canada Road, and I'm looking down into Union Road in a sort of looking southwards, if you like. And behind that piece of terrace fencing, there are, along the length of Union Road, 9 properties, 2-storey dwelling houses proposed there. Final photographs, excuse me. Photograph G, I'm back out on Cyprus Road. This time I'm looking down Cyprus Road, looking south. In the distance, you can't see, but in the distance is the junction with Newfoundland Road. So we have the village centre and Palmer's car parking. To the right is a photo, and to the left, the frontage behind which the flatted element to Cyprus Road would sit. Photograph H is taken at a different time of year. So that was taken last December, which is why the landscape looks a little different. But I'm stood outside of the site looking into the southern boundary. So this is the Royal Way spur that is currently there. To the right of the photo, you have the beginnings of the Central Sounds. So this part of the site also has an interface with the Central Sounds. Now, there are a number of different house types proposed. The house types themselves have been simplified in their number following the advice from Design South East, and they are grouped to a greater degree in the layout, again from Design South East advice about the need to do that. And that was partly in response to comments from Design South East that actually, whilst our design guidance says that there are 2 character areas, Design South East felt that there were actually more than that, and that we needed really to look at a finer urban grain. And they suggested doing that by grouping house types, simplifying the number of house types coming forward, and also zoning the areas using a very simplified palette of materials to achieve that. So this is the spruce house type. This is a 3-bed unit, and it is used as a detached and as a semi-detached property in the scheme. The Juniper is a 4-bed detached property, and then I just have one slide that shows 2 different house types. These are both 3-bed units, the Apple and the Hazel house types. Now, we have 5 flat blocks, and I've included slides for 2 of them. This is 16 to 24. This is 9 1-bed units, and this occupies the junction, the corner location at the junction of Newfoundland Road with the Royal Way as it comes through the development. Within that frontage, this is a landmark building and has been designed as such, but it is not the landmark building of the scheme, because that is the flat block that will occupy the junction of Cyprus Road with Newfoundland Road. So what we did with the applicant team and the urban design consultant working for the council was we looked to design that building, and that's the slide before you now, as a landmark building. And our urban design consultant was very clear in the advice that she gave. We talked about a chamfered edge to really articulate the building. We talked about the materials palette, off-white render, earthy yet warm tonal bricks, and also some cladding detailed on that chamfered edge. The balconies also were revised, and the roof form was revised as well. So a much more contemporary design response. The other flat blocks all take their design cues from this block. There are subtle variations. The urban design officer was absolutely clear that she did not want identical flat blocks across the scheme. So to better explain that, what I've done is I've included in our committee papers the urban design officer's comments on the proposal before us and how her comments have been taken on board. But we also asked the applicant team to provide a visual representation of what the Cyprus Road frontage in particular would look like, and they have provided this for us in response to that request. So you can see there the landmark building, 61 to 69, the chamfered edge, the difference in materials there. And then the adjacent blocks have a very subtle variation in the materials. They don't have the cladding to the corner, and the final block on that road frontage doesn't have the chamfered edge. And that again is a very deliberate design response following the urban design consultants' advice in that respect. And you can see there you've got the cycleway, pedestrian cycleway, and then the landscape strip as well coming forward there. One final slide, members. What we have here is another representation of the scheme. The top left is what you would see of the 4 dwelling houses proposed central sands interface if you were stood in the central sands on one of the footpaths. The landscaping and the footpath isn't actually that close or that sparse, so you wouldn't see that. It would be a far more glimpsed view of that frontage, but that's a representation of the properties. Plots 34 to 39 in the bottom right hand corner there, that's the image that you would see if you were stood almost at the junction of the Royal Way with the Newfoundland Road, with the flat block 16 to 24 behind you, and if you were sort of looking in a southeasterly direction. So you have there an array of detached properties and also a glimpse view rather of a terrace of 3 in the distance there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Mr. Field, very comprehensive. Can I just ask you, just to go back to your penultimate slide, the building on the, just to help those members who may not know this area so well, the, yes, that one, the building on the left-hand side is what?
I think the building on the left-hand side, the single story, I think that's the building that is the community centre that has the little spa in it.
I can confirm that, Chairman. That is the supermarket small spa shop.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Actually, Councillor Deach, you're there. You asked to speak to the committee on this item. Before you do, can I just say for the record that as a councillor, and in particular in this instance a ward councillor, you are at liberty to address the committee, although you do not have a vote on the final deliberations. So Councillor Deach, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, obviously I live very close to this area, and so I know it very well. I've been involved with talking to developers and officers as well about what's being proposed, and I have to concede that I do see improvements in this latest, let's say, iteration of the plans. Now, there are a few concerns that I have though, which I'd like to point out to the committee. So I'm very disappointed about the visitor parking space provision. We have a serious problem in Deep Cut with parking and lack of parking provision. And if there's anything at all that can be done tonight to address that, I would like that looked at, please. And I think that residents would like to see that too. I think it's fair to say, and I hope my ward colleagues would agree, that residents have been very patient and very, let's say, open to ideas for this development. I have to say I haven't received a massive amount of correspondence in respect of the proposals. I think people have got it in their heads that this is happening and all the rest of it, but I think they've been let down in terms of parking provision, and I'd like that debated and discussed this evening, please. 7.9.5 makes, to my mind, for very concerning reading. That we see on a regular basis that no one takes responsibility for unadopted roads, and that causes a huge issue in terms of future maintenance. I'm deeply concerned that it seems to me that all that's happened here is just to have some loose discussions about it with nothing concrete put in place. And I'm not asking, I'm demanding that that is sorted out. So if you could look at that and also debate that this evening as well, members. So some conditions I would like to see imposed, please. Cyprus Road access to Dettingen Park. Now, Dettingen Park in the main are private roads that are paid for and maintained by the residents of Dettingen Park, at great expense, I might add. And one of the issues that we've had is that access from the married quarters, which forms part of Cyprus Road, people use Dettingen Park as a cut through, adding to the wear and tear and maintenance issues of those roads. I had a look through, I've read the officer's report in detail, can't see anything about that from Highways. I did meet with Andy Stokes from Highways several months ago and asked that he takes that into consideration. I've just done a keyword search on the document, still can't find anything on that. So could you please have that addressed so that residents are not left to pick up the maintenance costs from additional wear and tear from this development. There's mention in the, and I think forms part of the policy, about charging points, electrical charging points for vehicles, which is great, and I'm happy to see that. I've asked in previous elements of reserve matters of Mindenhurst that officers condition that the developer make sure that any garages, whether attached or not attached to properties, are powered, so that so at Dettingen Park, for instance, a lot of the garages there don't have power, even if they're attached to the building. Now, that's easy to provide power to those garages after the fact, but if the garage is not attached to the building, and maybe, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30 metres away, it's very difficult after the fact to then get power to those garages. So I'd like to see that conditioned, please. I'd also like, I don't know how you condition this or whether it's just an informative or what, but I'd also like to see that the play area there that's going to form part of that development is of a high quality. Residents, again, of Dettingen Park were let down by Surrey Heath Borough Council by not insisting when that was built that the play area met a good standard. It's a substandard, I would argue, and any parents here that have seen that play area would agree with me. And finally, I also requested with the developer and Highways that a crossing be provided between Dettingen Park, which will form a link through for children walking to school, particularly to Tomlinscote School, and the new cycle path that's been put in place, a lovely cycle path that links Deepcut to Tomlinscote School, a safe walking and cycle route. But they've got to cross that busy road, and I think we've missed an opportunity here by not providing a safe crossing point there, because a lot of the children from Dettingen Park, from this new development, will use that to walk to school. And I don't know how that's addressed, but I'd like to see a safe crossing point there for the children. And hopefully my ward colleagues will have some things to discuss here this evening, but that's all I've got to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deitch. Mrs. Fielder, do you want to pick up those points as you can? Thank you.
I will do my very best, Chair. In respect of the text at para 7.9.5, that paragraph is there to explain that very late in the day, and when I say very late in the day, it was actually 3 days after we closed the committee agenda, it became apparent that County Highways had met with the wider developer team with Skanska and Defence Estates, and there were discussions about County adopting Newfoundland Road and some of the private in the ownership of the MOD highways. And as a result of that, there were proposed priority changes to be accessed with, the junction of Cyprus Road with Newfoundland Road. And what we had to do very late in the day was stress test the layout before us this evening to make sure if that priority change came forward, it didn't impact on the siting of the flatted blocks in particular, or the landscaping that we've spent 18 months trying to secure along that frontage. So that was in specific response to that. Now, I understand that the discussions are advanced and County are keen to adopt what is currently private roads in the ownership of the MOD. It doesn't include any discussions on private roads in the ownership of Dettingen or the management company there, is my understanding. It is purely the roads Newfoundland Road and Cyprus Road that are currently not adopted roads but in the ownership of the county. There are also conditions proposed to make sure if the adoption process goes through and any priority change at the junction there, that this scheme responds to that. So that's why that text is there. But it's not, I don't believe in our gift as a council to compel anybody to, or compel county to adopt highways and to alleviate the issues there with the maintenance that's currently being borne by Deffington Park. I do not believe that that is in our gift this evening to seek to remedy that or address that.
Chairman, could I come back on that particular point when it's appropriate, please, Chairman?
Of course. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But if I'm wrong on that point from a legal standpoint, I'm sure one of my colleagues, I'm looking at John and Jenny and also our legal representation, but I don't think that's in our gift this evening to try and address that. In terms of electrical vehicle charging points, we are actually requiring the applicant to deliver betterment on the outline permission as it stands, and also the county standards as they stand, because at the moment the applicant team would only be compelled to deliver 20% EVC for the flats. The conditions that we're imposing this evening require 100% for the flats, and that guidance is not yet currently in force. So we're seeking to better on that position, both in terms of the outline permission and in terms of the county standards as they are. In terms of the parking provision, sounds odd hat, but what's being proposed is in accordance with county standards in terms of parking provision. The applicant team are not compelled to provide visitor parking. What we have done is we've really pushed and pushed and pushed and got the layout tweaked to get 15 parking spaces coming forward for visitor parking. That's required revamps to the scheme to achieve that. But the county standards don't compel that. That's something that we as an authority have really had to push to get. Now, it may not seem a lot, but we have worked incredibly hard to get that. And as I say, there is no required standard for visitor parking. What we have done is we've imposed a condition that requires retentionable garages for parking of vehicles, so there's no permitted development right to convert the garages. It's not something we do routinely, but there is a condition that has been imposed to deal with that. That condition goes even further and requires the retention of all parking bays and parking courts for the parking of vehicles as well. So we've gone a step further, and these are requirements above and beyond we imposed on Carla, who applied the same parking standards at the bottom of the site. Now, clearly we're hopeful that we'll have our own parking standards coming forward in the new local plan, but at the moment we are in the position where we have to apply the county guidance standards, and that's what we've done. The play area, we have a range of conditions as drafted in the committee papers to require a suitable standard, and there's reference to needing completion certificate for that, so that should be delivered as if it were a Surrey Heath play area, and we're applying the same standards as we are to that in the village green, and requiring the site of the completion certificates for that as well. And then the cycle path and the crossing, I again don't think that's in our gift tonight. Off-site highway infrastructure works are secured as part of the 106, and I do not think we can require that reasonably as part of this reserve matters application. It may be something that is taken forward outside of the application process in further discussions with the wider applicant team, but certainly I don't think that's in our gift tonight to try and take that forward. Thank you.
Okay, Chairman.
Councillor Teach, just a second, can I please? Thank you, Mr. Fielder. On the county highways, which I think you were going to come back in on, or just to add on to that, it is my understanding that, and we've had this on a number of estates, some in West End, which Councillor Alloway will know, that these are not adopted by county highways. It is not the policy to adopt roads on estates, and unless there has been a change which I'm not aware of. So I rather stopped you there, Councillor Dees. Did you want to come in again?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, no, I am aware of that, Chairman. I just think that, I mean, I saw someone, when I was speaking about that, a few sort of nodding heads in sort of understanding what I was talking about. But the thing is that what I don't want to see is there being any grey areas about ownership. So at least then, whether it's encompassed into whatever management company that's going to be set up for it, whether it's going to be adopted or what. I just don't want any land ownership issues where, when there's a problem with those roads, that we can't find out who it is that's responsible for repairing it.
Yeah, I mean, just to confirm, it would be an estate management issue, and they're likely to set up a management company.
Right, fine.
We can't put any condition down or anything like that because it's outside our powers to do so. Yeah. But obviously, they would have to ensure that they're dealing with all ownership issues as part of that.
Okay, and on the power, where I was talking about the power points, the electrical EV power points, I actually meant, and it's great that you're requiring them to provide more with that, and I'm very happy about that. But the particular point I was making was that you condition the developer to provide power to garages specifically. So there's even more additional there. I don't know whether you do that as an informative. You've done it before on planning applications that I've spoken about. I'd like to see that, please. And on the crossing, yes, if we can find a way of coming to some nice agreement with our developers as the community spirited people that they are to arrange for that crossing. I can't think of one. I'm pretty sure not one member in this committee would disagree that that should be provided. And I know that you've been working, Chairman, on the strengthening the local policies in the local plan about parking provision. Let's keep that good work up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deach. Yes, I think we will accept the conditionality for the, yes, we'll do it by way of an informative.
So informative for the garage.
Yes.
And raise in discussions
it makes a lot of sense, that, yeah. You may help the team here by raising that point with the county as it has to go across a county road, and it is a very fair point, and it's one that I think we will all look to you to raise as you go.
I will, and perhaps that's something else we can include in our local plan as well. But anyway, that's another matter. Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for that, Councillor Deach. Members, over to you, Councillor Dugan. You indicated you wish to speak, I believe. Unmute, please.
Good, just got to find the right button. Yeah, I really just wanted to reinforce what Councillor Deach was saying there. It remains astonishing to me that the bus route road that goes round the side of the atrium in Camberley, outside the theatre, which you would imagine being, you know, a bus route and a main highway and all the rest of it would be county council land. It isn't. It never has been, and I suspect it never will be. So to wrap it up so that there's absolute clarity on this and indeed any other development is really important, because it's a nightmare. There was a massive pothole in it last year and no one wanted to fix it. So I entirely support whatever it takes to get that written into this agreement. which according to Mr. Partington, I think is done anyway, pretty much. So.
Yeah, we've commented on that. Councillor Whitcroft?
Hello, yes, I'd like to make a point just ever so quickly about the crossing. Unfortunately, further down the path that leads straight from the development to the school that Councillor Deitch referred to, there was a serious accident only last week which required support from the air ambulance service. So obviously that puts more importance on the need for that, because obviously it's already quite, you know, and we are going to speak to Skanska about that, because obviously, you know, we need to do whatever we can both for the path and for the crossing. I do, again, know, as does Councillor Deitch, Detchington Park very well, and parking is a huge issue up there. And again, if there's any way of providing further spaces for that, I appreciate what you say about the work that's gone into it, and for that and for the plan, that, you know, but we do need more, and the local residents have made it very clear that they don't want the parking that spills off this development to spill onto Detchington Park as well, because the situation is dire enough as it is. Sorry, I was just looking at the other thing is the play area. This probably isn't so much a planning point, but the play area on the village green has taken a considerable time, and I believe is pretty ready for opening now, but has been delayed twice, if not 3 times, due to the asbestos that's been in the soil. Is it possible somehow to put a time limit or restriction of some kind on that, so that it's not that the residents are without this facility once it's finished being built, please?
Sorry, can I just interrupt? You're talking about the new play area, aren't you, on the proposed development?
Yes, that's right. The new one there, I'm just a little bit concerned that we're going to have a similar issue to the village green, because as I understand it from, I know that there's been 2 issues of it's been put together and had to be stripped out. And then I believe there's become a problem again with who is maintaining it and with the equipment being put back. And that's obviously a set of
knowing some of the background on the other area, I sincerely hope not. Can I bring in Mrs. Fielder on that point, please?
In terms of this land parcel, and that is really all we can look at tonight. I'm aware of the problems with the village green play area, but that's outside of tonight's considerations. In respect of this one, I have proposed a condition, condition 9, requiring delivery of the play area prior to the occupation of the 25th dwelling. I'll be honest, I'm surprised the applicant team haven't come back and said that they think that that is too soon on a 127 unit scheme, but that condition is there and does require delivery of that area prior to the 25th occupation.
I just hope they're not listening to this. Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to kind of associate myself with Councillor Deitch's remarks regarding electronic charging points. Obviously, I know we can't do more. I really wish that we could. My one point was just regarding the use of Detchington Park as a rat run, essentially. And obviously, the problem is that so many people use the car park going through past the village hall and the supermarket, which is not really a through road. I was wondering, is there a way for the developer to provide some kind of signage or barrier to prevent or discourage people from driving through that bit, and to actually use the roads that are in place coming up through Newfoundland, going through Newfoundland Road? I was wondering if that is any possibility at all.
I'm afraid not, councillors. That is something though that I do think would be beneficial for either board members or officers to discuss with the wider applicant, Defence Estates, and Skanska as their delivery partner, because I do think that that is something that almost needs a slightly more strategic discussion to be had. about running and cutting through the existing road network.
Can I just say, local councillors, when they are speaking with the applicant and Skanska and things, they do keep the officers informed of those discussions. I'd hate councillors to prejudice themselves on, because this site's going to be with us for a bit.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Field. That's kind of very helpful. I'll make sure that you're copied into anything that I send. Just one other thing, I just wanted to kind of say well done in terms of parking. I understand Councillor Deitch's comments regarding visitor parking, and obviously that's always an issue. But in terms of car parking provision for units, and it's almost 2 parking spaces per single unit, and we have a significant number of 1-bedroom units as well. So I just want to say it's very good that we've got a good provision of car parking for residents as well. Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to support the plea for more parking. Most of the modern estates we've built, particularly on the outskirts of the town and some way from the major shopping centres, have been underprovided, and that's caused knock-on problems when those estates are occupied. So really it was just a statement to say I support the request for more.
And I would also say, in your absence, we have been progressing the selection and working up on different plans, part of which will go into the local plan and parts we want to bring forward in advance of that for our own parking standards. It is work in progress, but can we please just focus on this development, if you don't mind, please. Any other councillors wish to? Councillor White.
Talking about the roads and everything being private roads and not being adopted by council, is there going to be a similar situation as there is on Earlswood in Bagshot with the Sands as well? Do the borough own the Sands, or will that belong to the development?
Yours and ours and the borough. The Sang is being transferred over, as it is in various parcels, and it's being transferred over to the borough with the usual caveats, 80+ years and etc. Any other comments? If not, we've discussed this at length, and thank you for that, members. There is an officer recommendation with the additional informative. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lewis, I didn't see you. Sorry, beg pardon.
Yeah, it's not really to the application, it's more a request for the future. This is a large application, and all the way through it refers to plot numbers. The diagrams supplied, they're too low resolution. All I'm asking is, can part of the document pack be higher resolution things? Because just to see what's being talked about in the
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Lewis. You're in charge of the finances, so if you give us a lot of money to provide money to do that sort of thing, I mean, I think we could all have colour slides and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you'd like to have a word with that and Mr. Little when you next have a session.
I just meant to add them to the Modern Gov document pack.
Sorry about that, David. I just couldn't resist that one. No, sorry. Right.
The additional informative, because I don't think they're very
I'm struggling.
The additional informative is?
I just want to be absolutely clear. So if members are to support the officer recommendation to approve, that would be subject to an additional informative to request that all garages have electricity supply. But that's it, and then there's a wider discussion outside of the planning process about additional off-site highway works in the form of the crossing.
And that's all garages, whether or not they're attached to the host building?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, when we come to a vote, Mr. Scott will read out our names whilst you can see it. Councillor Rice, you wanted to come in?
Yes, sorry, just regarding that informative, could it also be applied to all parking areas within the development? So not necessarily just garages, but as you've mentioned in the condition of that they cannot be changed, it's carports and car areas as well. Is that possible?
Condition 15, as currently drafted, Garages hereby approved should not be converted to ancillary residential accommodation and should be retained for purposes of parking of vehicles. In addition, parking bays, parking courts and open parking spaces hereby approved shall be retained for the purposes of parking of vehicles.
Yes, but could we include within the additional informative of providing electricity power to garages to provide electricity powers to all of the car parking areas included in that condition as well, to provide future provision for electronic vehicle charging points?
I don't think it's feasible to provide electricity supplies to parking, visitor parking bays. I mean, some of them will have electrical vehicle charging points in any event. I think it's 8 of the 15 have to have an EVC. All of the allocated parking for the flats and 1 parking space for the dwellings has to have an EVC. So by default, most of them, I guess, will have an electrical charging supply anyway, just as virtue of that.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Mr. Scott will read out the names, but firstly, we have a recommendation with the informative as stated. Is there a proposer and a seconder for that, for the recommendation? Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Betton and Councillor Perry. Sorry, Graham, I saw top first. I'll move over this way. And Mr. Scott, can you read out the committee's names? Yeah, the final wording of the informative and anything else will be agreed with the chairman and vice chairman and ward councillors. Can you please?
Councillor Graham Alloway.
Yeah, agree with the officer recommendation.
Councillor Peter Barnett.
Agree.
Councillor Cliff Betton.
Agree.
Councillor Colin Dugan.
Agreed.
Councillor Sean Garrett.
Agreed.
Councillor Edward Hawkins.
Agreed.
Councillor David Lewis.
Agreed.
Councillor Charlotte Morley.
Agreed.
Councillor Robin Perry.
Agreed.
Councillor Darryl Rataram.
Agreed.
Councillor Morgan Rise.
Agreed.
Councillor Graham Tapper.
In favour.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
Agreed.
Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
Agreed.
And lastly, Councillor Valerie White.
Agreed.
Thank you, members. I can work that out. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Deach, can I just say, are you staying on for the second item? The reason I ask is if you drop off, can you please indicate before you go, because it makes it easy, extend it flick. I don't, you know the system.
Yeah. I intend to stay, and I would like to speak to the item as well, please, Chairman. Thank
you very much. Before we go any further, can I please, with your, give thanks to Mrs. Fielder for the enormous amount of hard work she has put in this development. I think she's been involved in it from day one, and I do know the amount of work that she's put in to help deliver. I mean, this scheme in particular, which is very different to what it started life as. And I would like to say, on behalf of the whole committee, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, a big thank you. And she's passing it on to Mrs. Bishop. So we'll be seeing Mrs. Bishop. This is the last time we'll see Mrs. Fielder on this particular item. So, Michelle, thank you very much. Can we now move to item number 2 on page 55, the former Chiswick School, Frimley Green. On declarations, I think and I imagine everybody else has had a letter from the applicant. Are there any other declarations to make? Councillor Whitcroft.
I have had the letter, and I've also had 2 telephone calls in from the developer in connection with the application, but to remain with an open mind.
Wow, you've had 2 calls. I don't think I've had any, luckily. Nobody else has had any. Thank you. Mr. Carty, please. Thank you, Chair. We've had that.
You have to go
I recognise that.
Oh, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going.
God, yeah, don't do that. That's it.
Go.
We don't want those.
You didn't want those 55 sides.
This application relates to a site within the countryside beyond the edge of the settlement of Frimley Green. The proposal is to provide service plots for 13 dwellings on the site. The wider site includes play and open space, which will be provided for this development, along with woodland and ecological management. This is a hybrid application with some details such as the pavilion building, access and landscaping, provided as full details with the size and appearance of each of the dwellings to be provided at the reserve matter stage. This relates to a development to provide service plots for which this proposal will provide towards an unmet need. Beyond the need to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, there is also a national need to provide at local level service plots for self-build or custom house building. The local need is set out in paragraph 7.3.5 of the officer report. The owners of the plots, as self-builders, would submit the reserve matters applications for their plot and would become invested at the design stage. This is much earlier in the process than traditional house building, where the product has already been approved or possibly built before their involvement. There are updates provided which include some amendments to the conditions. The proposed amendments would allow different timescales for the outline of full elements and amends the time for provision of land contamination, remediation and drainage provision outside of the residential plots. I'll lead you through photos and plans. The application site lies on the north side of Guildford Road, between the edge of Frimley Green to the west and Deepcut Bridge Road to the east. This is the former Cheswick School site, which has been closed for some time, and the site now fully cleared of buildings. There is a tree preservation order for individual trees and groups within the site, mostly to the site frontage and along the access road. It's not expected that development would require any loss of the significant trees on the site. This is the access point for the site, viewed towards the east. Visibility improvements at this junction would be required by condition. This is the existing road into the site. The proposal would provide an access road in the same location. Depending upon the condition of this road, it will either be resurfaced or replaced. Here is the siting of the former main school buildings. This is located to the west part of the residential plots sightings. Before viewing the details of the new proposal, it may be helpful for members to view the layout of the extant scheme, which was put before committee a few years ago. This was for 10 dwellings, each provided over 3 floors, arranged around a cul-de-sac. Here is a contemporary design for the approved scheme. Here is the proposed layout, which shows the plots to the northeast part of the site, similar in position to the extant scheme. The existing access into the site is the same as the existing access and also the same as proposed for the extant scheme. To the west of the houses is the existing tennis courts and the proposed pavilion. There will be landscaping, open space further to the west with footpaths around, and these details are to be provided in full at this stage. And can be undertaken after the pre-existing conditions have been complied with. To the north of the site is retained woodland. Here is a landscape plan which better illustrates the landscape proposals. The building developable areas are in pale brown or yellow. This is typical plots. This shows the developable area for the dwelling in grey and parking in blue. It is anticipated that less than half of the developable area would provide the final building footprint. The indicative area of soft landscaping is in purple and the building front elevation in black. The areas in yellow indicates the contractor's compound and material store for the construction stage. And this whole area at the back is the rear garden area. Here, this is a schematic drawing of the possible development as envisaged by the applicant. The design code sets out the requirements for the new dwellings and will be required to be met for the dwellings, which would be assessed through the reserved matters process. A more traditional approach in terms of building shape would be provided. A contemporary approach could have been provided here, but a mix of contemporary and traditional design solutions would have jarred. The maximum heights and floor space for each dwelling are to be controlled by condition. The proposal provides the redevelopment of previously developed land in the countryside. It also follows the approval for the currently extant housing development on the site. The proposal would increase the number of units and overall size of the development, which is accepted on the basis of the need to provide service plots for self-built housing. It's not considered that the development is likely to have any significant impact on rural character, particularly when compared to the expanded scheme. The application is therefore recommended for approval as indicated on page 64 of the agenda report, subject to the completion of a legal agreement. Please note the second recommendation to refuse at page 73 if the legal agreement is not completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Can you delete the pictures? Right, Councillor Deitch again. Again, I will make the same comment in case anybody's come in late or just for this item. As a ward councillor, you are, and a councillor, you are able to address this committee, although you do not have a say in the final deliberations. Thank you, Councillor Deitch.
Yeah, thank you. Members will be pleased to note that I've not got a massive amount to say on this. My concerns, though, are really on highway safety. I note what's been said in the report, but anybody who has visited that site or uses that road on a regular basis will know that vision lines are heavily restricted. A lot of blind spots, and I have a lot of concerns about that. So I want assurances from officers that Surrey County Council Highways will take that into consideration. I should say, though, that I posted about this particular development on my Facebook page the other day, and the response was actually surprisingly positive compared to normal planning applications that we post about. That people do like the idea of this self-build situation, so I think that's something that should be encouraged. It does look like quite a high-quality development, and that land is not used for anything much in particular now anyway, so in broad terms, I support the development, but I'm very concerned about the highway safety aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deitch, because the officers here do not have, unfortunately or otherwise, one may say, an lot of control over Surrey County Council highways, but we won't go down that road at the moment. There is an extant development, and yes, there is a pent-up demand, as stated in the officer report, for self-build houses, and that is something that we've been putting forward in the draft local plan. Councillor White.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate Paul Deitch's concerns on highways. Rightly or wrongly, one of my children went to that school a long time ago, and the sight lines are horrific. Horrific. You took your life in your hands trying to get out of the complex. So I know it's not the discussion tonight, but it does need to be looked at. And if anybody can bring highways to the table, it does need to be looked at. Couple of other things. Whoever builds their house first, would they then be able to object if they didn't like one of the other houses that was being built? I know that's but it just came to me as I was reading through the papers, you know, whoever gets on there first, if they decide they don't like what the other people are building, would each person have to come to us individually for planning permission for their houses? That's one question. Is it going to be a private estate? And I notice there's going to be the tennis courts are going to be refurbished and everything. So is it a private estate for public use? And also, with it being the different plots, serviced plots, as called, does that mean it's going to be leasehold? Doesn't make sense, a lot of that. I know, I do apologise. And will residents be given an idea of what the service costs are going to be for the site before they actually buy their houses? Thank you.
Well, that last point is not a planning issue. It is down to the solicitors. I know you do like to try to push the envelope. It's down to the solicitors. And as far as objecting, I mean, well, everybody has the right to object to everybody's development, but it makes some interesting conversations around the barbecue and the... Mr. Carter, do you want to come in on those?
Yeah, very quick. First of all, just to come back to the point raised about highway safety, we are proposing conditions to improve the visibility, and there will be some cutting back of the landscaping on that frontage. We have also checked that it would result in the loss of any of the major trees as well, but there'll be quite a lot of cutting back there so that there is improved visibility, because I think, you know, anybody that goes down the road will know that it's poor at the moment. In terms of yes, I take up what's been said about if somebody does put in an application, then a neighbour or future neighbour could make comments on that like anybody else. And we would be expecting them to come in as individual applications. So there's 13 plots, 13 reserved matters is likely.
Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I share Councillor Deitch's fears with regard to the layout of the access road into this site from Guildford Road. We have a similar situation on Heatherside, where Old Bisley Road exits onto the Mortway Deep Cut Bridge Road, where the roads come back from the junction on either side, as they would in this particular case. And we know from sad experience here that the vast number of accidents that have happened at this particular junction because of the lack of visibility. The responsibility for maintenance of the land to provide adequate visibility falls on private landowners, as it would appear to be the case here. I know it actually says in the Surrey County Council Highways report that visibility will be maintained, but will it be who will it be maintained by? Will it be maintained by a management company owning the land? It clearly isn't Surrey County Council land. This is actually land which is part of the school's domain, and it would be their responsibility. Would they only respond to requests to keep this sight line free, or would it be provoked purely because accidents have happened? I would like to offer a different suggestion here, and would like us to suggest perhaps to the developer that rather than maintaining the existing access into the site as it is at the present moment, to tear that up and return that to nature, perhaps with installing trees to replace any lost, and instead reroute the access from the housing through the site so that it passes below the recreation area and actually joins Guildford Road on the outside of the bend, so that visibility is exactly the opposite of what it would be at the current time. And so there would be an improvement in visibility. It certainly wouldn't be as bad as it is at the present moment. Thank you, Chair.
I'll deal with that second part, in that we can only look at what we have in front of us. It is not our gift to make suggestions, to either approve it or it fails as it is. And as far as the maintenance, Mr. Carty, do you want to go in on that one?
Very, very briefly, it would be a management company again that would be dealing with those matters outside the plots.
Thank you.
I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, it would be a management company that would deal with any issues outside of the plots.
Can we make a condition that that is maintained, or there's something within the management agreement?
Well, no. In short, we can't impose a condition. The only conditions we can impose are the ones that County Highways have already suggested. The ownership certificates the ownership issues are then a matter for the landowner to deal with the private parties, and we can't get involved in that.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder whether or not there could be an informative that is added to say that we would look for any properties that came forward to conform with the design statement. One of the things that sort of worries me a little bit about just approving this as an outline is the parking arrangement. So we know that they're going to be somewhere on that site, but they could end up being fairly prominent. So we have a design guide for the borough, and I just wonder if a mention could be made in relation to that.
I would refer back to condition 3 in the first instance. It's applications for the approval of reserved matters pursuant to this outline shall be in accordance with the design code that's been prepared for this application.
Yes, Councillor Wheeler.
Sorry, the bit that worries me on that is it's for this application, so it should be the design code that has been agreed across Surrey. Maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it's covered, but there's not, looking at it very literally, the Surrey Heath one probably would give a little bit more.
Well, to an extent, because the reason is in accordance with policy DM9, the supplementary development document which you're referring to, the residential design guide, picks up on policy DM9. So when the reserve matters come to this committee or come to the council, we can consider at that particular point in time how much they adhere to that guidance.
Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you. I appreciate that the access and leaving the site particularly is probably a county matter, but is it possible to make a recommendation of some nature to make it a left turn only? I appreciate that that obviously does have a bearing impact on this, on the entrance and exits to the site, but as Councillor Deach particularly has pointed out, and it's obviously something as being local members somewhere that we all use that road quite a lot. There is without doubt, and I would like it to be put on record that we have had and have considerable concerns with that access, and all we can do really, I would agree with Councillor Tapper and ask if it can be moved, but obviously, as you said, that's not something we can deal with within this application. So as I say, I would like that to be placed on record that we have considerable concerns about the access.
I'll write it in the minutes.
Yeah, that will be minuted, and again, it's not feasible for us to ask for that. It is not a conditionable item, but the minutes will record your comments, and this, of course, is going live and on the tape, so I think the message will have been sent out. Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one question. Just regarding condition 6, I just want to know who is responsible for enforcing that the visibility zones are kept permanently clear. Is that us or is that County Council?
That would become an enforcement matter which we would have to deal with as the Borough Council, because it's our condition to comply with.
Okay. Right, members. Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, some extension to what Councillor Tapper was saying. Could we not at least put a pedestrian/bike exit where he was talking about? Because someone trying to get a bike out of that junction, I think, is going to be extremely dangerous.
No. Do you want to expand on that, Mr. Carty? No, we can't. Is that better?
It's exactly what I said before.
Yeah, it's
Just to confirm, any changes to the access or the cycle parking or anything like that, we have to consider the access scheme which is before us tonight, which is being considered by County Highways Authority. You also have to bear in mind there's an extant approval on this site as well.
Right. Okay, we have a recommendation. Is the officer's report to accept. Is there a proposer and a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Betton, seconder. I'll second on that basis. Mr. Scott, would you kindly? You have Councillor Betton and Councillor Hawkins there. Thank you.
You're voting on the recommendation as set out in the agenda report. Councillor Graham Alloway.
Agree with the officer's recommendations.
Councillor Peter Barnett.
Agree.
Councillor Cliff Betton.
Agree.
Councillor Colin Dugan.
Agreed.
Councillor Sean Garrett.
Agreed.
Councillor Edward Hawkins.
Agreed.
Councillor David Lewis.
Agreed.
Councillor Charlotte Morley.
Agreed.
Councillor Robin Perry.
Agreed.
Councillor Darryl Ratharam.
Agreed.
Councillor Morgan Rise.
Agreed.
Councillor Graham Tapper.
With regret, against.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
Agreed.
Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
Agreed.
Councillor Valerie White.
Agreed.
Sure, you can add up.
That members is past 14 votes to 1 against. That's the end of it. It's actually a very interesting agenda. Some interesting points that came out. So thank you all. But thank you, members. Thank you, officers. Thank you, any members of the public that have stayed with us that came on. The next meeting is on the 18th of June, and we keep getting promised all sorts of excitement. So we'll have to wait until the agenda comes out and see what we've got. So thank you very much, and good night to one and all. I just remind you that it'll take a minute or two for the link to go away before anybody says anything about when the hairdressers are open or that some of us are desperate for a haircut. Thank you and good night.
Yeah, and I believe one of the hosts will let us know when we're finally.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, well.